Today I'm going to make Spanakopita or Spanakopita. Both ways of saying it are correct for English speakers. I don't speak Greek, so there is probably a proper pronunciation, but I typically call it Spanakopita. It involves spinach as the primary filler and feta. It has layers of phyllo pastry so phyllo on the bottom, spinach and feta in the middle, and then phyllo on the top. I'm going to add in a little bit of cooked up turkey because I had some of that left over, and it'll just make it a little bit more hearty. The turkey has a little bit of Greek seasoning in it, which just has a combination of spices and herbs. It makes it a little tastier. So the first thing that we need to do for this is to saute up an onion, some garlic, and we're going to saute that up in some olive oil. The Greeks use a lot of olive oil in their cooking. This isn't extra virgin, this is just regular olive oil, but it is still very tasty. Once I get those sauteed, I'm going to wilt a lot of spinach. I mean a lot of spinach. So these leaves, most of them have the tails taken off, but some of them still have them attached. These are baby spinach leaves, so they actually will get soft and that'll be fine. If you're using larger spinach leaves, you would want to take that stem off because it's a little bit woody. So while the onions and garlic are sauteing, I'm going to take my feta and I'm going to crumble it. You can buy it pre-crumbled, but it comes in a smaller amount. This recipe calls for about 200 grams, which this package is, 200 grams. Now, it comes in a large block in liquid, so careful when you're opening that you don't spill it everywhere. I've been known to do that. And then you just kind of have to either crumble it with your hands or you can use a knife to chop it. I kind of tend to chop for a little bit and then I kind of turn it and just kind of randomly chop it until it kind of gets to a nice crumbly size that I like. I'm going to combine that with eggs, and as soon as my onions and garlic are done, I'm going to toss that in there, and then I'm going to wilt the spinach. So when it comes to wilting spinach, it really just means that you're warming it up to the point that it kind of gets wilted. So instead of being nice and firm like these pieces are, you're actually going to get it cooked until a point where it kind of looks like a really deep dark green, like a forest green, and everything is kind of shriveled and wrinkled, so not crisp and green like these ones. So that's wilting spinach. You can wilt almost any leaf. Spinach and kale are the ones that are wilted most often, but even lettuce can be wilted. So now that my onions and garlic are done, I'm going to begin to wilt my spinach in a frying pan. So this is the first batch. I'm going to do it in quite a few batches. So a little bit at a time makes this a little bit easier. So you're literally just wilting it. It's no longer crisp. I'm just going to add that into the egg mixture and then add another handful or two into the frying pan. You don't need to add any oil or anything because it's a non-stick pan. You could do this in cast iron without having to add anything to it. You can still do it in stainless steel without adding anything. You do just run the risk of it sticking a little bit. But oil is not necessary for this. You just move it around a little bit until it starts to get all wrinkly and deep green. That's all there is to it. I'm also going to add a little bit of Italian, I know we're making a Greek dish, but it's Italian parsley. I love the flavor of this crisp freshness in this dish. So I'm going to chop up a little bit of this to put into the filling as well. It's not required, but I like the fresh flavor that it provides. So we now have our mixture. You can see the different layers in here. I'm just going to mix this all together and then our filling is complete. After that, I'm going to begin to actually assemble the Spanakopita. Now when you're dealing with phyllo pastry, this pastry is a pastry, it's super, super thin. Some people call it the leaf pastry. So you do need to open it up. You need to thaw it first in the refrigerator overnight before using it. There's no real faster way to do it than that. If you try to microwave it, you'll cook it. If you try to do a water bath, the water tends to seep in and everything gets mushy and nasty. So the best way is to put it in the refrigerator overnight. So that's what I've done with this one. Once you open it up, you'll lay it out, and I'll show you in a second, but you have to put a damp towel over it. Because it's so thin, if you don't put a damp towel over it, it will dry out and then it'll get brittle and crack on you. So I've wet this towel down and I've wrung out as much water as possible. If I got to the point where I couldn't get any more drips out of it, that's the kind of damp that you want. So I didn't soak it all the way through. I just kind of got it a little bit wet and then wrung it out. And I'm going to put that over the open pastry. Then I can begin to actually use the pastry and assemble. As soon as I take one sheet of pastry out, I'm going to cover it again. I'll show you. So this is your phyllo pastry, and I'll just show you how thin it is. This is paper thin, and even the slightest little pull will actually rip it. So you have to be careful with it. It does tend to have cracks in it already, and you can kind of see here. There's one here. That's okay. We're going to be layering multiple layers, so it's okay if it has a rip in it. But to prevent that from getting any worse, I'm going to put my towel over top. Done. So now I'm ready to start assembling the Spanakopita. So I'm going to take 2 phyllo sheets and I'm going to put them in a 9 by 13 dish. So 9 by 13 is in inches. So 9 inches by 13 inches. Okay? If you're thinking in centimeters, because we live in Canada, it's 24.13 times 34.29. Or a 3-liter container. A lot of people just call this a lasagna dish. And this is kind of the Greek version of lasagna, if you want to think about it that way. So once I put the phyllo in this dish, I'm then going to use a pastry brush and some olive oil, and I'm going to paint it. I'm going to thoroughly coat it. Sometimes you could use butter, but this dish specifically uses olive oil. It's added a nice flavor in combination with the other things that are in the dish, more than butter. Butter would kind of overpower the flavor, so olive oil is a good combination. So now that the layers of phyllo are all layered up nicely and oiled together, it's okay that they're all sticking out the edges. I'm going to tuck them in at the end. I'm going to put the fillings in. And a traditional one would only have the spinach layer, and then you'd add the phyllo on top. However, I had extra turkey left over from another recipe, so I'm going to put that in this as well. So it really will be more of a Greek lasagna, if you will. Now that our Spanakopita, or Spanakopita, is ready, it's all assembled. You can see, it's kind of a nice little phyllo package. We can put this in the oven at 325 for an hour, or if you're not ready to use this right away, now is a good time to saran wrap and freeze. You can take this out, let it thaw for a little while, and then put it right into the oven, maybe a little bit longer than an hour, but basically you're waiting for these layers of oily goodness to get nice and golden. And then you just cut into nice pieces and serve. This makes a really nice side dish if you didn't have the turkey in it like I do, or since I put the turkey in, it's now basically a main dish. It has all your food groups in it. Ready to go. Okay, golden crispy Spanakopita. It took an hour in the oven at 325. There you have it, Spanakopita.